Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another episode of Left 4 Dead 2 Myth Busting Mondays. And in today's video for the final myth, we're going to be testing to see whether or not that if a hunter can traverse the entirety of the Blood Harvest campaign without touching grass. And as you guys can see from the background gameplay, Blood Harvest has a lot of grass. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, please drop a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. And if you also have a myth of your very own that you'd like to be featured in next week's episode, please by all means leave it here in the comments down below. Or also alternatively, you can leave it within my Discord server, which is going to be linked down below in this video's description. All that being said, guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing this week's episode of Left 4 Dead 2 Myth Busting Mondays. Myth: does the jockey's model size vary ever so slightly depending on which survivor it's riding? Alrighty guys, the first myth of today's episode is submitted in by Ace Rose. Now when it comes to this myth, the answer is yes, believe it or not. The jockey's model size does differ ever so slightly depending on which survivor he is on. In this case, he is bigger when he's on Coach and smaller when he's on Rochelle. And you can even see the difference without necessarily needing to use the sniper scope like I thought you would have to. You can just tell by just looking directly at the survivors side by side. That is going to mean that to start off today's episode, the first myth is confirmed, and now let's move on to myth number 2. Myth: does the Magnum not have a visible muzzle sticking out of the front of the gun? Alrighty guys, the second myth is submitted in by Dr. Zed, aka Dan. Now unlike the first myth where I said that Valve had a lot of attention to detail, I can't exactly say the same about the second one here because yes, the Magnum is missing its front barrel. Once you notice this, you can't unsee it, especially when someone is shooting the Magnum because bolts are coming out of literally nowhere and the gun just looks goofy now all of a sudden. So this means that the second myth is confirmed. The Magnum is just missing and flat out doesn't have a muzzle on the front of the gun. Myth: can a smoker's tongue stop a hunter in the air mid-pounce? Alrighty guys, the third myth is submitted in by Good Guy Nick. Now what you're going to see here from the test, guys, is that when Dan hits Spencer and I shoot my smoker's tongue at them, it looks like that even though that Dan pounced Spencer, as Spencer and him are falling down, they start to separate, but the animation of Dan attacking Spencer is still playing. So when I first saw this, I thought that this is what the myth was asking for, was just seeing if whether or not that you could cause like this radio delay of the hunter attacking somebody mid-animation. But you guys can see upon watching the footage again that this started to happen before I even shot my smoker's tongue in the first place. And nothing changes if you just do this to the hunter by himself with the lack of a survivor, because the smoker's tongue can't do anything to the hunter, which is going to result in myth 3 being declared busted. Myth: can you alert the witch by mailing objects at her? Alrighty guys, the fourth myth is submitted in my Nutcake, and when it comes to the myth here, I'm going to just shove this shopping cart into the witch and hope that this angers her, because technically I am hitting her just with an object. Now here's the thing with the shopping cart, unlike a melee weapon, is that at times it seems intangible, where it just goes through the witch, either that or she just doesn't care. Which is funny given the fact that yes, it would suck to get cracked over the head with a frying pan. I still think getting hit by a flying shopping cart would also still be enough to piss somebody off. But hey, this game doesn't always necessarily operate off of logic, so we're gonna have to declare myth number 4 as busted. Myth: can a hunter traverse all of Blood Harvest without touching grass? Alrighty guys, and then the last myth is submitted in by Dead Sled, aka Spencer. And the specific area of choice within the spawn that we're going to start off with is going to be the spawn room table that has all the weapons and ammo. Now, because this map has so many trees in the goddamn way, we're going to need to be able to get up as high as possible so that way we can see what we're working with. So I'm trying to get higher and higher up in the ground, and we're even going to use some of the trees to our advantage by literally jumping inside of them. The main thing is just trying to figure out which trees are going to allow us to even do this in the first place, because not every tree does, and not every part of the tree does. And then once we get into the trees, after this point, we're going to be just trying to mostly climb off of mountains and or nearby rocks. By the way, I just thought I would mention for clarification's sake, this is not like a speedrun challenge, and nor is this a challenge where if we fall and hit the ground once, like, we can't do it again. So if at any point I go back to the same spot, that is why. And if I also am stuck on a particular spot for a certain amount of time, I will just fast forward the footage or just cut out until I get to the successful attempt, just to save your guys' sanity. Speaking of which, that is exactly why I'm going to be fast forwarding this part of the footage right now at 400% speed, because Jesus Christ, this part took unnecessarily long to complete. And the reason why is because, I'll just be honest, I am not a person that plays a lot of versus mode, so nor am I a person that is experienced in the Hunter and doing parkour jumps with him. I was originally trying to use momentum and jump from a tree and then quickly over to a rock, but instead I was able to find a different tree, and I was able to jump over to the rock after just standing still for a second and readjusting my aim. Now, the part in which you are watching right now was like the last part, I would say, where I struggled for a while, because this was mostly just condensed forest at the beginning, and then once you get past, I would say, the bridge, that is where you start to get more of the buildings, and once I got to the buildings, I was pretty much home free until Chapter 3. And then around Chapter 3 is when it started to get a little bit more complicated again. So with that being said, when we get to Chapter 2, I very well might just fast forward the footage the entire way through, because there was really nothing of significance that happened within Chapter 2. In fact, even for Chapter 1, once I got to this part, like I said, it was really pretty much just home free from there, because it was just mostly concrete, buildings, a lot of other things I could be able to walk on. That is, if I was able to walk on them and not miss, that is. But eventually I got the hang of it. Anyway, so I just made it to the safe room just now. Let's move on to Chapter number 2. Now, of all the chapters, I would definitely say that Chapter 2 is the easiest, because a majority of the campaign is just indoors. I mean, sure, you're outdoors for a little bit, but the most significant portion of it is going to be indoors. Or at the very least, not in an area where there's going to be grass that we can't touch. And I'm about to literally finish up Chapter 2 right now. Let's move on to Chapter number 3. Alright, so Chapter 3 of Blood Harvest starts off simple until you get to about this part, because at this part, the closest thing to me that is not grass is going to be a rock, which is on my far left, and the only way to get to said rock is to jump off of the wall and parkour. Now, the good news is, though, that my skills weren't entirely rusty, because I was able to get the hang of it eventually after enough persistence. And once I got on the first rock, after that I just had to just keep jumping from tree to tree, rock to rock, and any piece of wood that was nearby. Now, of absolutely everything that has been in the map thus far, my biggest nemesis and the toughest part of this particular map is going to be this part right here, because I have two options. I can jump to the tree and hope I can parkour jump off of it, or I could try to do the same thing, but just do this to the tree that's behind me instead. Now, after what felt like an eternity doing this specific part, I was finally able to get it by just using the jump on the first tree. After doing that, I just decided to follow Spencer, because he had found a path that worked better than what my current path was doing, and then I ended up getting as far as all the way to the Panic event, or the Crescendo event, and it was around that point that I had met my next challenge, because believe it or not, it was actually what I was not expecting. I thought it was going to be the bridge, but it wasn't, because I eventually found a path, because the initial first path that I tried to take was jumping from this building over to this rock, which was not really working out in my favor. So Spencer, shout out to you, because you ended up finding multiple paths throughout this video that were able to help me get to the safe room. So thank you, my friend, I do really appreciate you. And as we get to the safe room here, all I had to do left was just fall inside. I wasn't sure if I wanted to jump in, or if I should have done something else, but I ultimately decided just to take the easy way out and just jump on the dead animal, and that's what allowed me to get into the safe room. See, now Chapter 4 I didn't think was that bad, but it was funny because the beginning of it was probably the hardest part, which was weird because it really wasn't that hard once we finally figured out what we needed to do, because at first I thought that we had to jump off of the sides, and we were trying to jump either off of the safe room door and go right, or just trying to jump around the safe room door and go left. But it was more simplistic than that. We actually just had to just jump straight ahead, and there was a rock I could jump on. I just didn't see it at the angle I was at. And then regarding Chapter 4, once we just got out of the spawn, we were pretty much home free from there, because it was just a lot of buildings, rocks, and everything that was super helpful to get across the map. There was fences I could jump on, and then once I got on the, train tracks and was able to go to the train area, that was pretty much just like a guaranteed win at that point, because there was no more grass in the way of me. Okay, that means there's one chapter left. Time to go over to the finale and go to Chapter 5. Now, I'm inclined to believe that some of you might be wondering, being like, John, what about the maze? What about the corn maze that's coming up? Wouldn't that be pretty much just all grass and basically give you no opportunity to progress to the finale, meaning that the myth would be busted? Here's the thing, my friend, is that that's a good question, and I can answer it for you right now. Luckily, as much as this area is annoying when you're playing as a survivor, it's not nearly as bad as an infected, because as an infected, there's stuff you can jump on here, believe it or not. You can jump on tractors, you can jump on railing, and then you can eventually get to the farmhouse pretty efficiently, I would say. I mean, sure, the farmhouse is not necessarily going to be a slam dunk. You still do have to have somewhat of effort put into it. It's not going to be as easy as Chapter 2 was. but for the most part, at the end of the day, it was still a lot easier than Chapter 1 and 3, and I finally now got on top of the farmhouse, and technically the challenge is complete in my eyes. But for just a little bit of pizzazz and a cherry on top, we also just decided to jump into the rescue vehicle. So yeah, guys, the myth is confirmed. A hunter can traverse all of Blood Harvest without touching grass, as long as he can jump on the trees, the rocks, and all the other stuff in the map. Alrighty guys, but that's going to be here for today's video, and I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying it. If you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. And if you guys have a myth of your very own that you would like to have be featured in next week's episode, please by all means leave it here in the comments down below. Or also alternatively, you can leave it within my Discord server, which is going to be linked down below in this video's description. And as we wrap up the video, guys, I want to mention two last quick things. Number one, I have a second YouTube channel now. It is called Black Ninja 797 Extras. And on this channel, I'm going to be uploading and posting additional content that you would normally not see here on my main channel, such as gameplay walkthroughs, funny moments with my friends, and Challenge Accepted, which was a series I used to do here on my main channel where I play games you guys requested me to play. If you guys want to check out the second channel, there is going to be a link down below in this video's description. I also want to say thank you and shout out to Epic Games for being my first ever sponsor. I have a supporter creator code with them, and the code is just my name, Black Ninja 797. If you guys want to, you can use it in the Fortnite and Epic Games item shops. Anybody that uses my code or has used it before in the past, I tremendously appreciate you. And yeah, guys, all that being said, I hope you ended up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most sneak YouTubers are ever going to see. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords, Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!